The film that I'm choosing to discuss in our movie madness discussion is a film directed by F.W. Murnau. The movie is named Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. This is one of the greatest horror movies ever made, even though it's a old black and white silent film from 1922. And if you research this film, you'll find out that it is a plagiarized version of Bram Stoker's Dracula. They changed some of the names in the film, but it's clearly plagiarized. They even say in the intro that it is loosely based off of Dracula. And this film, since it's a silent film, it has to use different elements to get your attention and to give you an eerie feeling. They use orchestra music playing in the background, and it's very creepy. It would be a good way to describe it. It's very well made, and it gives you a sense of fear and dread going on. And this movie used what was called stop motion photography. It's one of the early special effects. They used it in one of the scenes where they have a coffin that is moving by itself. It's closing. So they do a bunch of rapid shots of a coffin, and every shot that we see on screen is it moving to its final position, and then finally it's closed. And they use this form of special effects a few times throughout the movie, since this is very early on when we didn't have a lot of technology or anything. Any kind of effect had to be physically done, and it was very expensive. One of the biggest cliches that has come out of this film is the whole vampires catching on fire when they're exposed to direct sunlight. You can trace it back to this film. And that has changed the way we see vampires, because every vampire film out there, for the most part, shows vampires combusting spontaneously when they're exposed to UV light. And this is the film that showed us that. Because this film was plagiarized, Stoker's wife actually tried to have this film removed from the theaters and from the world completely, but she failed. She went to court trying to sue the studio, and her lawsuit was pretty much pointless because the studio was bankrupt and they had no money. So then after that, she convinced some of the courts in Germany to destroy all the films. But people kept bootlegging it and sneaking copies of it around. Eventually, right before her death, this film came over to the U.S. and was even shown in some theaters. So I think this film definitely changed the continuum or the film industry, because it's what we think of a vampire when you see it, even though this is such an old film. If you look at Nosferatu himself, he is very creepy, and they didn't have a whole lot of special effects. It was all makeup, and the actor that they picked, he depicted a vampire very well. He was even thought to have actually been a real-life vampire because he played the part extraordinarily well. And that's why I picked this film. It's one of the best vampire films out there, and if y'all ever get a chance to check it out, if you were a fan of horror films, you'll enjoy this one. It's worth a watch, even though it's very old.